What's your experience with piracy and IMDb ratings?
Piracy is inevitable. As soon as your movie comes out, it will be pirated. What's interesting about the piracy in relation to the ratings is that somehow it's the people who don't pay for your movie who feel kind of most entitled to go out, watch 1 minute of it that they torrented, and then go on IMDb and write a review. I only watched 1 minute of this. I'm going to give it 1 star. It's the worst movie I've ever seen. And part of it is that they just are expecting that they think every movie is basically like $100 million movie. They don't understand like what an independent movie is, because from their perspective, they're going on the torrent site and they're like, oh, here's a list of new things. I'll just grab all these things, and they turn it on for a minute and it doesn't look like what they expect. They don't know that they're seeing an independent film. And so you get waves and waves. It's really, as soon as that piracy happens, you start getting waves and waves of negative comments and negative ratings on IMDb. And one of the ways you can tell this is that, like, for example, we had a movie that was only released in the US, only available on limited platforms in the US. And the day it goes up on Pirate Bay, you start getting all these comments from other countries. The only way they could have watched it is basically through piracy. And once in a while I've gone in and like commented back or confronted them in places where I say, clearly you pirated this movie because like you live in Brazil and it's not available there. So how did you see it? And they'll get defensive sometimes and weird about it. I don't really do that too much, but I thought it was amusing for a minute. But yeah, it's really like somehow the most entitled people. I guess it's not surprising because they feel entitled to just steal the movie. Then they also feel entitled. They're like they've been wronged if it's not like a masterpiece, and they feel entitled to go out and kind of pull the rating down.
And how long ago was that this happened?
The last one was with a movie that came out in 2019.
So it's happened to you and Sophia more than once?
We've definitely had where as soon as it's that was the worst case, but we've definitely had other cases on IMDb where. As soon as it's, you start seeing, as soon as it goes up on the torrent sites, you start seeing all those low ratings.
What was your reaction to the experience, aside from attempting to maybe try to poke back, but then realize it was a waste of time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a frustrating experience because people do rely on it for deciding whether to watch the movie or not. And I did, at one point, years ago, I did email IMDb and I said, look, the movie's not out in these countries. Like, why are you allowing ratings in countries where the movie has not been released? Like, these people clearly have not seen it. And they just say, oh, it balances out. They have some stock answer. Anytime you complain about ratings there, they have some stock answer that they're like, it'll all balance out. Don't worry. We weighed everything. It's all fine.
Has this happened with all of your movies?
I think all the ones that have gotten wide release, pretty much this has happened with. The ratings have a number of different types of issues. It's not just the piracy issue. There are what I suspect. I mean, I can't prove this, but what I suspect are bots. Basically, people pay. I know for a fact that many people pay for bots to get a certain number of ratings in their movies, and that's kind of a secret standard practice for a lot of films, including studio films. And what happens with the bots is that they will go and rate, let's say I hire them to rate my movie 9 and 10. They go and do that, but those bots, in order to not look suspicious, they go and rate other random movies, random ratings, including low ratings, so that it looks like they're giving a wide range of ratings. So we've had movies before they're even out that have not even come out, or they're on the festival circuit, that get 1,000, like 1-star ratings. And I'm like, who are these 1,000 people? It's certainly not people 1,000 people haven't even seen it at a festival, and suddenly there's 1,000 ratings on this that are 1 star. So there's not really accountability in the system, and we can see patterns of it, based on we know the movie's not out yet. There shouldn't be ratings for it.
What do you think about independent filmmakers being judged solely based on their IMDb rating?
I mean, I think any kind of rating like that is unfortunate because it's not a scale of whether you or I might like the movie. It's like who are these random people who are deciding to make this rating? And I think it's more important to understand that certain movies are for certain people. So not every movie is for every person. And we see a lot of trolling on IMDb where it's like a movie's made for like young girls, and you see there's like a wave of negative responses from like, young men or older men who are basically just trying to pull that movie down. It's like, this movie is not for you. You're not really supposed to like, it doesn't matter if you like this. That shouldn't be a way of assessing whether the movie is successful or meaningful. So it's a little bit frustrating because I would love to see a system where it's more like associated with how would we predict you would feel about the movie if you watched it. And I do use Letterboxd quite a lot. I don't rate movies on it, but I do like Letterboxd because I can see specifically how do my friends rate them. I don't care about strangers, but I can see, oh, my friend really liked this movie, or my friend really disliked this movie, and I know based on my relationship with that person, if they liked it, maybe it's something that I might like, or if they disliked it, maybe it's something I would dislike, and I wouldn't necessarily not watch it solely based on that. But it's a much better sense of like what is your peer group and how does that look than just like a generic number.
And with these bots, are they actually leaving long comments, or they're just basically giving it 1 star?
It's usually just a rating, but you can pay for reviews. I've known people who paid for reviews, and with the paying for reviews, I think there are some where you can write the reviews and send them to them, and they just post them. But there are some that kind of generate pretty generic reviews. And if you go and browse on IMDb, if you start seeing kind of weird reviews, you're like, why is this written like so strangely and generically? You can find, and I don't want IMDb to say I'm slandering them, but I think all this is pretty visible on the on the outside. I think you can see where there are fake things happening there. I think they know about it and they tolerate it to a certain degree, or they don't have the resources to deal with it. I mean, it's a complex problem to solve, to eliminate like all these bots. How do you identify what a bot is versus what a person is? Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, and if you said they're going to other account, if they're leaving, it'd be very hard to decipher if you're seeing a trail of them on the internet leaving various reviews, and it happens on other platforms as well. In fairness to IMDb, yeah, and it is difficult to handle. If a movie is rated 5 out of 10 on IMDb, will you still watch it?
Yeah, I don't really judge the scores very much. I mean, some of my favorite movies, I kind of always, when we're picking movies out, I always think about like, what is my favorite movie? What is the movie I love the most? And then I go look at the IMDb score and it's like a 4.7 or the reviews are mostly negative, or a Rotten Tomatoes score of 60 or something like that. I realize like the things that connect with me most in movies aren't necessarily what is going to play well in a general audience score. And movies that are 9, movies that are 9 or 9.5 or Best Picture winners, I think are terrible movies. I think they're awful. So, I might look at it to get a sense of like, it gives me some information. It says, okay, what does a kind of a general audience think about this? But that doesn't necessarily speak so much to what my interest will be. And again, Letterboxd is a little bit more targeted because I can see what specific people say about it. I can have a breakdown of like who is saying what, rather than IMDb where it's just a number.
Can you think of what some of the highest rated independent films are?
Independent films, I don't pay that, it's hard because I don't pay that much attention to the scores, but I think some of the highest rated ones, often are ones where they just have a niche audience, and that niche audience is really passionate about it. But they haven't, if they haven't fallen prey to the bots or other things like that. I'm trying to think of a really good example, and nothing comes to mind. Rotten Tomatoes, I mean, lots of movies have high Rotten Tomatoes scores partly because they don't have that many reviews, or sometimes they're good independent films have high scores. There's been a trend, I think, in Rotten Tomatoes where reviewers are a lot nicer now, because the reviewers are a lot more, there's a broader base of reviewers who are now included in Rotten Tomatoes. And I think those reviewers are a lot more friendly, and they feel like they owe something to the movies that they're being sent screeners and all kinds of things. Whereas if you go back and you look at a movie that came out 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and you look at the Rotten Tomatoes rating, I think it's often much, much lower than it would be if it had come out now. So yeah, I can't think of any specific independents that have. I don't pay very close attention, but I think you have to take it in the context of the time, who's rating it, what do the ratings look like, and Rotten Tomatoes. Also, a high rating doesn't mean everybody loved the movie. It means everybody thought the movie was, okay, at least okay. So sometimes there are movies that nobody really loves, but everybody is kind of like, yeah, it's fine, and those have very high tomato scores because nobody really said that it's a terrible movie.
And on Letterboxd, do movies also get downvoted?
People definitely write negative things or give low scores on Letterboxd. But again, same way, I don't take the score too seriously, and I'm more interested in like what do my friends say about it. If I'm curious about a movie, what did my friends' reviews say? And I'll read the strangers' reviews as well, and you can get a sense of whether a person's like, this is the worst movie ever, it's terrible, I hate it. And those kind of reviews are like, I wish they would just kind of expunge all the, I would give it no stars if I could, or it's not a meaningful assessment of a movie.
Sure. I think back to Roger Ebert, from Siskel and Ebert, and just especially his one book, I hated this movie. And if you read, it's entertaining. It doesn't mean it's going to stop me from wanting to see the film. I actually sometimes want to see it more when I hear people complain about a film, because I want to know. I do the same with Amazon reviews on books or whatever. Right. Like, really, they felt this? Now it makes me actually want to read it even more. So sometimes it can actually work in your favor, but.
Yeah, I think Ebert is a brilliant reviewer, no doubt. But he had a really interesting bias, especially in his early career, against horror movies. So I'm really interested in horror films, and so I love reading like the Roger Ebert reviews of horror films, because they're all like, even the most beloved horror films that I think are great, that generally now people have come to think are great. He's like, this is just trash. It has no ideas. It's awful. I mean, he writes the most scathing reviews of all these movies, like no 0 stars, all thumbs down, everything. And I think as he got older, he started to reassess. Like, if he changed his way of assessing some of those films. And I think people who were critics at that time felt like they had to conform with some of the norms of the time. And horror movies were very, they were inherently kind of trashy. They were inherently believed to be trashy. So people were very reluctant to give them positive reviews, because it kind of almost reflected badly on the critic. Whereas now, horror movies are much more respected. I mean, still there are many people who don't respect horror movies at all, but they're much more respected, and they're considered a more acceptable kind of mainstream idea. And so you see a really different approach to criticism than what was done in the past.
That's an interesting take, because I think, did he apologize to some actress? Was it Tippi Hedren or somebody? I don't know which. But there was somebody that he said, any review or negative thing that I put about her, I apologize or whatever.
Yeah, he's definitely retracted stuff or rethought, reviews, and I think that's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you're a bad person or you did something wrong. I think it's totally respectable to change your mind about something, or to have new context, or to understand something differently. So yeah, I think that's the times have changed, I'd say.